Here's the part nobody warns you about. Clarity does not arrive in a journal at sunrise just because you're meditating. It arrives at full volume with no filter on a regular, degular, schmegular Tuesday, and it asks what you've been managing instead of facing. If you've been waiting to have that conversation, this is it. This is Strategic AF, the podcast for the people who built the impressive thing and then quietly wondered why it all feels so heavy. I'm Maresa Friedman. I built Strategy Solve to help leaders scale life, business, and legacy without losing their minds and themselves. And this show is the unfiltered companion to my book of the same name. Every week, I am trading hustle theater for one honest conversation and one usable tool from the framework that holds up the whole thing: people, process, profit, partners, potential, and possibility. No bypass, no formulas, no 8-figure pep talks, just the truth you wish someone had handed you sooner. So pour the coffee, close the tabs, take the breath you've been postponing. Let's get strategic AF. Okay, welcome back. If you're new, this is episode 2. If you went and did the work after episode 1 and you wrote the 2 columns and you asked which version of success was yours, I see you. I know that that was not small work. Today's episode has a heavier center of gravity than the last one. So I want to do something that I don't always do at the top of a show, a podcast, or an interview. I want to set a care line. We are going to talk about sobriety today. Not only the literal kind, though that's what's in here. We're going to use sobriety as a business principle, as a decision to stop blurring the truth. If that conversation is tender for you in any direction, if you're in active recovery, if you're navigating someone else's, if today is just not the day, take care of yourself first. The episode will keep. For everyone else that's still here, let's get into it. Almost every high performer I know is in some quiet way managing a gap between who they present and who they are. The substance just varies. And that's the whole episode. That's the door that we are walking through. I want to tell you when this episode actually got written in my head. And it wasn't at a retreat, and it wasn't a journal at sunrise. It wasn't during yoga. It wasn't during meditation. It was a Tuesday afternoon in my kitchen, standing at the sink holding a mug that I did not remember picking up. I had finished a call and the call had gone fine. Nobody was in crisis. Kids were at school, dishwasher was running, dogs were sleeping. There was no emergency. There was no deadline. There was no chaos. And in that completely uneventful 5-minute window, Clarity walked in like she owned the place. She did not come gently. She came with a specific sentence. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what the sentence was because that's mine. But the shape of it was, you have been managing this thing for a long time and you are too smart not to know it. I want you to notice that this didn't happen during a keynote. It didn't happen at a strategy offsite. It didn't happen on a meditation cushion. It happened in the most ordinary 5 minutes of an ordinary week, the second that I stopped running. And that's the thing. Clarity does not wait for a journal. Clarity waits for the gap. When I say that I talk about sobriety as a business principle, I'm not telling you what to do with a glass of wine. I'm not handing you a moral framework, and I am not converting you to anything. I'm pointing at a posture, the posture of choosing not to blur the truth anymore, the posture of looking at your numbers without softening them, looking at your team without flattering them, looking at your week without lying about why it's like this, looking at the relationship to a person, a project, and to a role without performing the version of it that makes you feel okay. Sober in this sense just means I am not editing the picture before I look at it. And here's the strategic case for it. You cannot lead a thing that you refuse to see clearly. You cannot price a thing that you refuse to value honestly. And you cannot leave a thing you refuse to admit you've outgrown. Every single move that actually changes a business, pricing, hiring, firing, restructuring, leaving, launching, every one of them starts with the same prerequisite. Somebody in the room had to be willing to look at the real thing. So here's what this episode is going to do. First, 3 things. 1, the numbing inventory, the honest list of what we reach for to take the edge off the truth. Second, what clarity actually feels like when it arrives so you stop being surprised by it. Third, the clarity cost assessment. 3 questions that will tell you by the end of the episode what you're ready to stop blurring. And then your signature question of course, and your work for the week. So here's what I mean by numbing. Let me define the word, because if I just say numbing, half of you are going to mentally exit this conversation because you don't identify with the cinematic version of that word. Numbing, for my intents and purposes of this conversation, is anything that you reach for to take the edge off a truth that you don't want to feel yet. That's it. That's the whole definition. It is not about substances, it is about function. And once you define it that way, the inventory gets very, very interesting very fast, because the most effective numbing tools in a high performing life are not the obvious ones. The obvious ones get noticed, the obvious ones get intervened on. The dangerous ones for our crowd are the ones that culture applauds you for. So let's look at the high performing numbing menu. And I'm going to walk you through what I see. These are the big ones, and see which ones are yours. There is absolutely no judgment in this list, there's only data. Work itself, the most socially rewarded numbing tool on earth. Nobody ever throws an intervention because you stayed late. Work lets you avoid the relationship, the conversation, that feeling, the question, and lets you get a raise for the avoidance. It is the cleanest drug in the cabinet, the phone. Now, everyone admits this one because it's become safe to admit it, but I want you to notice the function. The phone is what we reach for in the gap between two thoughts, the 2 seconds when something might land. We close those gaps reflexively, and the gaps were where the clarity was. Busyness. Overscheduling as protection. If the calendar's full, you can't be asked to sit with anything. You can't be asked to choose anything you've been postponing. Busyness is a very smart looking way to say no to your own life. Overpreparing. My personal favorite, I'm guilty, control is anesthesia. If you can just prepare enough research, enough scenarios, enough slides, enough data, you don't have to feel the part where the outcome isn't yours to control. Overpreparing is the most respectable form of avoidance I know. Optimizing, the cousin of overpreparing, the endless tweaking of the funnel, the tech stack, the morning routine, the workout split, the productivity system. As long as you are optimizing, you are not deciding. And deciding is the part that costs you something. Helping. Yes, helping. This one is the sneakiest. Helping other people, clients, teams, friends, and family is so socially clean, we do not notice when it is the thing keeping us from looking at our own picture. Helping is a beautiful, beautiful instinct. It also sometimes is a really great hiding place. And let's go into it, the literal ones. Wine, edibles, Adderall, food, shopping, the phone, but very specific apps on the phone, the credit card scroll, sex, that hookup pattern that you outgrew but keep returning to under stress. These belong on the list, and we're not going to be precious about it. Same function, different tool. If yours is here, that's information, not condemnation. And so here's the honest invitation. I want you to look at the list, and I want you to pick yours. Not the worst one, not the most dramatic one, and the one that maybe you use this week, because everyone has one. Everybody, including me, including the most enlightened person you follow on the internet, including the person you must envy. The question is never whether you have a mechanism. The question is whether you know what yours is, and whether you're willing to put it down long enough to hear what it's been covering for. So let's be clear. Here's the lie that we tell about clarity, and it's basically in every wellness book and every business book of probably the last 20 to 30 years. That lie is that clarity arrives gently, that you'll be in a beautiful chair by a window with a journal and a candle, and a small, kind voice inside of you will whisper exactly what to do next. And you will calmly write it down, and your life will smoothly reorganize around this insight. That has never happened to me, not once. I've been doing this work for 15 plus years. It has never happened to me. And I've asked basically every smart person that I know, and it has never happened to any of them either. So here's what actually happens. Clarity arrives at full volume with no filter on a regular Tuesday. And the first thing it does is name the thing that you've been managing instead of facing. It does not whisper. It doesn't ask if it's a good time. It doesn't respect your launch calendar. It shows up when you're unloading the dishwasher, when you're 3 minutes into a drive, when you're looking at the back of someone's head in a meeting, or when you're falling asleep and your body lets its guard down for 1 second. And the first sentence out of Clarity's mouth is almost never aspirational. It is almost always a sentence about a thing you already knew, thing you have been protecting yourself from knowing on purpose. This relationship isn't working and hasn't been for a while. The thing I built isn't what I want to keep building. The person I'm protecting is not protecting me back. I've been pretending to be okay with something I'm not okay with. I outgrew this role, this community, this job, this life 2 years ago and have been doing a very expensive impression of someone who hasn't. The grief is real and you have to let it be real. And you do not have to do anything with it that day. You don't have to make a phone call. You don't have to fire anyone. You don't have to leave anything. You don't have to post about it. You don't have to cry on the internet. The first day of clarity is letting it actually land. The strategy is what comes later. What I want you to know is that the grief does not mean that you were wrong to see it. The grief is the tax on the seeing. And the seeing is the doorway to everything that happens and comes next. This is also the part where most people retreat because clarity is not a feeling you can take a screenshot of. Clarity is a demand. It asks something of you. And in the panic of being asked, most people go back to their numbing mechanism with extra urgency. The wine gets bigger, the schedule gets fuller, the phone gets louder. And that is the trap. The trap is that the moment that clarity arrives, in the exact moment our nervous system tries its hardest to make it leave. Recognizing that pattern is half the work. 3 questions in order. Okay, the tool. This is called the Clarity Cost Assessment. And it's 3 questions. You can run it on any area of your life or business where you suspect you are managing instead of facing. It takes about 20 minutes if you do it honestly. And I want you to do these in order because the order matters. Question number 1. What is staying costing me? Not what will leaving cost me. Everyone asks me that one. That one is always loud. That one is the question we've been using as the reason to stay. The first question is actually the inverse. What is staying in this role, in this offer, in this team configuration, in this relationship, in this version of the business? What is staying actually costing me? Energy, money, trust, self-respect, time with people who actually matter, creative capacity, health, honesty. Write the costs down. Don't edit them. Don't qualify them. Don't add a, but on the other hand gets the next question. The first question gets the honest column. Question 2. What is the story I'm telling to justify staying? Everyone, and I mean everyone, has a story, a script, a reason that is sophisticated enough to satisfy a smart friend at dinner. Mine for a long time was, well, it's a great problem to have. That sentence let me avoid an enormous amount of necessary clarity. Write down your story, the actual sentence, the one that you would use to explain to a peer why this thing that obviously costs you is also the thing that you're choosing to keep. Notice the language. Notice how it lets you off the hook. And notice what it protects. Common ones I hear, in case you want a starting list. It's just this season. Now isn't the right time. I owe them. They did so much for me. I built this. I'd look ungrateful. I've come too far to answer this question now. I mean, it's working, kind of. Other people would kill for this. Did any of those land? Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe all of them. And question 3, what would I do right now if I knew it would work? This one breaks people in a good way, because the second you remove the what if it fails question, you find out very quickly what you actually want. Write the answer, do not edit, do not pre-strategize, don't make it reasonable, don't make it on brand. The honest answer is the data. We'll figure out feasibility later. Right now, we're just naming the thing. And here's the part that I want you to feel. Between question 1, what staying costs, and question 3, what you would do If you knew there is a gap, the gap is the cost of the management. The gap is the price of the blur. That gap is very often the actual reason you are tired. Clarity is disruptive, and what replaces what you let go of is almost always better. I want to leave you with this because this is the reason that most people stay numb. And most people stay numb, again, it's not laziness, it is not weakness, it is the fear of the size of what clarity might ask of them. But here is what 15 plus years of doing this work with people has taught me. The thing that arrives after you put down the blur is nearly in every case better than the thing that you were protecting. The clients are better. The team is better. The offers are better. The income almost always is better. The relationships are better, or at least more honest. The mornings are better, and your body feels different. Not because clarity is magic, but because clarity is finally pointing at you all the right things to build. Okay, here's the signature question of this episode, twice, once at speed and once slow. What truth am I keeping myself too busy to hear? What truth am I keeping myself too busy to hear? Notice what shows up. Notice if a name pops in, a number, a decision, a relationship, a room in your business you haven't walked into in a while. You don't have to do anything with it today. You just have to admit that you heard it. This week's work is called the numbing inventory. And it's simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. 15 minutes on paper, phone in another room. At the top of the page, write the 7 categories from earlier in the episode: work, the phone, busyness, overpreparing, optimizing, helping, and the other literal ones: wine, Adderall, eating, shopping, all those things. Under each, write the specific way that the category shows up for you. Be honest, no one but you is reading this. And if you want, when you're done writing this down, you can light it on fire. I find, as I've learned from a great friend of mine, that if we write things down and we know that we're going to burn it, we tend to be more honest because we know no one else is going to see it. Then you're going to want to circle the one that you used the most this week. That's your mechanism. At the bottom of the page, you're going to write one sentence. The thing this mechanism has been covering for is, and finish the sentence. Don't edit it. Do not soften it. That sentence is your truth for the week. That's it. That's the assignment. Don't do anything with the truth yet. Just let yourself have heard it. Sobriety for our purposes today is the willingness to hear it without immediately reaching for the thing that lets you not hear it. Okay, before you close this and go back to your inbox, here's one thing I want you to actually do this week. I want you to run the numbing inventory on paper. Again, 15 minutes, name your mechanism, the thing you reach for to take the edge off the truth, and name the one truth you've been managing instead of facing. You don't need a workshop, you don't need a planner, you just need a few quiet minutes and the willingness to write the true sentence. The leaders who actually moved, again, they're not the ones with more frameworks, they're the ones who close the laptop and pick up the pen. Next week, episode 3, the high functioning lie, the kind of exhaustion that hits the numbers and smiles through the debrief. Whew, come back with this one done. If today's episode landed somewhere tender, send it to the friend that you keep texting at 11 p.m. That's the share I care about, not our social media algorithm. The book Strategic AF has every audit, every pillar, every reframe in deeper form, and I'm excited to share it with you. And when you're ready to stop talking about rebuilding the architecture and actually rebuilding it, Strategy Solved is the room that I built that for. Link is in the show notes. I'm Maresa. Keep it honest. Keep it strategic AF. Bye.